Good morning, everybody. I trust that you had a good night's rest and everything is going well for you and your family. My name is Danny from Deep South Homestead. This is Porch Time. Guys, today is another one of those just beautiful days. It has just been so lovely for so many days on end. And looking at the extended forecast, depending on what this system in the Gulf does, we've got nothing but blue skies for days on end. And you know what? Unless that system comes up in here, guys, we're in a serious drought right now. And I know that's hard to believe, but we are just fighting it. My pond is down. No water has been in it since it's been built, hardly. It's holding its own. It's not going away. But we sure could have used some rain. Now this system, I'm hoping, does something for us, but the extended forecast all the way into November didn't really show any rain, hardly, which is a sign of a La Nina being in the Pacific. So we'll see. With the ground solar minimum coming in, we'll just have to see. We have extremes. That's what it's about, is extremes. But today, guys, that's not what everything is about. Today, something that stays on my mind more than anything else, I guess, in these times that we're in right now, is the forgotten ways. You know, I do my best to keep the old ways going that our forefathers knew here at Deep South Homestead. You know, we still make the old cane syrup, and you know, we smoke our bacon, cure our meat, butcher our animals. You know, we raise chickens, we raise cows, we raise our own food. We do these kind of things like our ancestors did. We try to do that as much as possible. But I'm gonna tell you something. I'm just being honest. We're one generation away from losing it all, and I know that to hear that, you really most people don't understand it. But I want you to stop and think. It hasn't really been that long ago when you stop and think. A lifetime is really not that long. I'm 60 years old, and it seems like just yesterday I just got out of high school. I mean, literally. Time has flown by that fast. And in just a little while, I won't even be here anymore. You know, I mean, that's just how quickly things go away. And Wanda and I have talked about this many times. When we pass away, what will Deep South Homestead become? What will someone do with it? Will they continue the greenhouses? Will the place, all the gardens, will they all just grow up in weeds, and, you know, with the pond just grow up in weeds around it, and all the fruit trees and the vines and the stuff that we have that produces fruit and all this kind of stuff, will it just grow up in the woods? I mean, you know, you have to ask yourself that question. And I'm one of these kind of people that I looked long and hard for an old homestead whenever I was looking for a place, and I just couldn't find it. And I ended up having to just start from scratch and build one myself. And I've enjoyed the journey, but the old ways are almost forgotten. You know, I mean, when you go online and look for something, it's almost like lots of it don't exist anymore, some of the things. And I find it exhilarating, I guess you might say, when I find something that is an old way of doing something that's still kept, its roots are kept alive. You know, like cooking syrup. I mean, I don't have to know how to cook syrup because I've done it most of my life. But I still like to go online and look and see how different people do it, and all the videos I find are like anywhere between 8 and 15 years old. I mean, they're just old. There's no modern videos out there of cooking syrup. If you Google syrup cooking, Deep South Homestead is #1 on the list. And I guess that's a good thing. I mean, I'm not, you know, when it comes to building smokehouses and stuff like that, you know, we're pretty much up there on top of the list, along with other people like Tim Farmer and different ones. And guys, curing your own meat, these are things that are dying off. People just are not They're just not doing it anymore. They depend on commercial packaging places to actually take care of everything for them. When it comes to butchering, oh, let's just take it to somewhere else, let somebody else do it. I mean, there's actually really nothing to it. Once you learn the process, it's basically the same for lots of different animals. If you can butcher a deer, you can butcher a cow, you can butcher a pig. You know, I mean, if you can clean a chicken, you can clean a duck, you can clean a goose. I mean, you can clean all these things. You can clean a quail. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do once you learn how to do it and to do it efficiently. You know, one of the things that I guess just I think about a lot is just the younger generation coming on. Now, I'm encouraged by some of the younger people simply because they have a yearning to know. There's a younger generation out there that wants to know how to do things. They want to get out and do things. They want to know. And it seems like the powers to be are doing their best to wipe away any knowledge of anything that we have of the past. It's like everything is just being changed, and everybody's saying like, it's not safe to do this, you know, or it's not healthy to do this, or you could kill yourself doing that, or good Lord, you could poison yourself trying to can something. You don't have the intelligence to do it. You need to depend on a market system to do it, or a cannery to do that for you. And you know what? To me, that's just foolishness. You know, and I will say that I talked to my daddy so many times about the old ways because I wanted to know as much as I could know. And it wasn't just my daddy, my father-in-laws, I mean, different people, older gentlemen in the neighborhoods. I mean, I've tried talking to as many people as I could when I was coming up. And my dad told me, he said, son, we used to go out and just leave hams and stuff hanging in the smokehouse. We'd go out and rake the mold off of it and cut a slab off of it, bring it inside, wash it off, and we ate it. He said sometimes we'd leave a ham hanging in the smokehouse all year. In the Deep South, in the heat. He said if you cure it, it's not going to go bad. He said you keep enough red pepper on it and all. The old skipper flies, he said, get in it and bore a few holes in it every now and then. He said, but it wasn't going to kill you. And today, man, if I went out there and saw a piece of meat hanging in the smokehouse and it had mold all over it, I would question myself as to did I do it right, you know. But the old people just knew. They knew these things. My dad told me when they made cane syrup, he said sometimes cane syrup would sit out in the smokehouse on the shelf out there, literally, till the cans rusted out, being several years old, and the syrup just poured out on the floor in there. He said we kept cane syrup for years in a can, old metal cans that had the pop-in lids, out in the smokehouse out there where it stayed hot all the time, all summer. He said it ain't hurt nothing. And he said, if you salt that meat and cure it right and stuff like that, he said, you got nothing to worry about, son. He said, this government that we got today has got everybody scared to death of everything. Telling you if you eat lard, you're going to die of a heart attack. He said, I've eaten salt pork my whole life. Your mama goes in there and she fries it up. She boils it first and fries it up for me. And I've eaten salt pork almost every week of my life. And my daddy just passed away here the other day at 86 years old. So, you know, I just don't know. You know, it's one of those things that, those are some of the things that I just miss. I miss the old ways of life. It seems like that people were more content. Families got together. I mean, when they had hog killings, you'd have 2 or 3 families get together and they might kill 5, 6 hogs in a day, maybe more than that, and butcher it all out. All the women folk was in there making sausage and they were packing stuff and they were cooking off cracklings and cooking lard out. Everybody was by late that night. They had the lard rendered and the family just had a good time together and everybody had their survival food together. I mean, it was just fantastic what went on. And I think about what my dad and me when we were younger. My dad, October the 1st, he would come in there and he'd tell me the day before, he'd say, son, tomorrow morning, squirrel season opens and we're going to go squirrel hunting. And every weekend during October, my dad took me squirrel hunting. In November and December, you know, we went squirrel hunting almost every weekend. And we killed squirrels, we brought them home, and Mama would fix them up. and we'd have squirrel and gravy, dumplings and squirrels and gravy. I mean, you know, squirrels and biscuit. I mean, you name it. My mama would fix that stuff up any way we could. Now my dad never deer hunted that I know of. He didn't have a desire to deer hunt. He quail hunted. He went with guys who had dogs and they enjoyed, you know, going quail hunting. I never did actually do that with him, but he went many times during bird season. And but I'm the one who took up deer hunting. I saw a need to feed my family, and I got into the hunting of deer at a young age with archery, and it has been very successful my whole life. I mean, I've killed 73 deer with a bow. I feel like that's a pretty good accomplishment. I've killed so many with a gun, I don't even know how many I've killed with a gun. It's just within the hundreds. But those ways of surviving has just gone by the wayside. You know, raising a kitchen garden. You know, outside the house, next to the kitchen, where the kitchen was at, there was always a little place out there that had you know, they had a little picket fence around it, or a little wire fence or something to keep the chickens out of it. And there was always stuff raised there, the herbs and some of the quick things that Mom needed in the kitchen, some onions and you know, a few little things like that. It was called a kitchen garden. And it was just right off the porch, right there where Mom could run out and grab what she needed, some oregano, you know, maybe some spices or something, to be able to put in something when she was cooking. And you don't see that anymore. The generation that actually should have been teaching us, most of them, their parents went through the Great Depression, and they didn't want anything like their kids to ever have to experience anything like that. You know, so my dad, I will say this, my dad would not eat leftovers. Mom, if she made something and it was something left over and us kids didn't eat it, she just had to throw it out to the dogs. Because my dad said, all I eat during the Great Depression was leftovers. And I'm not going to eat leftovers again if I don't have to. If I'm making the money and I can afford the food, we're not eating leftovers. And to me it was wasteful, but I didn't grow up in the Great Depression either. If I'd grown up during the Great Depression, I might would have felt the same way. I had a neighbor I've told y'all before over here who let the pears just lay in his yard and ruin, because he said, I lived on pears during the Great Depression for weeks on end, and I don't care if I ever eat another pear. You know, the mentality of people who've been through these things is what forms the future of the country. A lot of the old ways died out because a lot of these older people were literally pushed beyond their limits to survive during hardships and hard times when there was no food. And then when food became available again and the economy picked up, they just literally said, I'll never do this again, and I don't want my kids to have to ever know what this is like. And they kept it from the kids. Many did. Thankfully, there's a few people out there that kept some of the old ways of going. That's been a blessing. I mean, the town next over, the county next over to us here, I used to live in over there, had several old men over there who cooked syrup, and I'm very thankful for these men. I got to grow up under them, and as a young man, newly married, watching them cook syrup, it intrigued me, and I was able to learn from these men. They taught me the things that I needed to know. And I have cooked syrup ever since on my own. And it's something that I just love to do. It provides us with a sweetener here at Deep South Homestead. It's actually a healthy sweetener. It's not like a genetically modified product. It's just pure cane sugar syrup. And a lot of people want to call it sorghum. Sorghum is different than syrup, actually. I'm not going to get into that because a lot of people say, oh, well, I'll do molasses or sorghum molasses, and there's a difference in the cooking process there, so we're not going to discuss that. But we are looking at some of the old ways in life. You know, they've died out with the generation. And if you stop and think about it, the generation that actually done those things, we're only a few years from all that generation having passed away. You know, 80 years ago and 90 years ago, people done those kind of things. And lots of people, you know, that's in their 80s and 90s, there's not a lot of them left anymore that's that age that knew about that stuff, that's willing to help people and teach them and, you know, at least sit and talk to them about it. Most of them don't say anything about it anymore. They all just, you know, they've all gone away and they don't want to talk about it, and a lot of things are just dying out. This generation of people have all the knowledge that we need in the world today, and it's like there's no concern, and that bothers me. You know, I mean, and I know there's a verse in the Bible, and it means it has a different meaning than what I'm going to use, but you can use it for a different application, and that's Jeremiah 6:16, where when the Lord was Jeremiah was talking to the Lord, and the Lord told him, said, you know, return to the old paths, we're in the good ways. Now we talk about the religious side of everything, but you can also look at it from return to the old ways of life, wherein is the good way. I mean, is it easy? No, nothing's ever easy, but at the same time, it's very rewarding to do something and it be self-sufficient. And you raise your own food. It's very rewarding to sit down to a table. When you give thanks for your food, you're able to thank the Lord because He provided it for you. You actually saw it grow, and you seen the hand of an almighty God preparing your food before you and growing it. And you dadgum sure didn't waste none of it. You didn't throw it away because you were the one who had to toil and sweat to raise that food. Not like it is today. You go into these all-you-can-eat buffets and you just constantly are, you know, you eat, well, I don't like that, and you just go rake it off a plate into a garbage can over there and put your plate up and get another plate and get more. It's all you can eat. It's just like a gluttonous society. That's part of the end time prophecy. People will be eating, they'll be drinking, they'll be marrying, they'll be giving in marriage. I mean, all this stuff. Guys, fast food restaurants came on the scene in they really got popular in the mid 40s and so on. And prophecy began to be fulfilled. People began to be just eating. They quit praying. You go to restaurants now, you don't ever see anybody pray over their food anymore. They just get the plate and they just go to eating. They're just gluttonous, you know. So, as a society today, we've lost a lot of the things in life that we should be cherishing. A lot of these old ways, you know, that's one thing I admire about the Japanese and the Chinese people, is they respect their elders and they sit and talk to their elders to learn as much as they can from their elders so that they don't make the same mistakes that their elders made. In America, all we do is we throw our elders away. We don't want to know what they thought or what they believed or anything like that, or what they done. We don't want to know about the old ways. We're modern. We don't want to hear that stuff. And as a result, we will demise over time. You know, so we will digress, I guess is the word I should use. And it's just, you know, there's so many ways that would be so pleasant to see people show up again. And when it comes time cooking syrup, I know even no older than I am, back in my 20s, when I would start cooking syrup across the road over here at my other syrup mill I had, I didn't call a single soul. I'd go out there and start grinding my cane. Me and my spouse and my kids, we'd grind us up about 100 gallons of it and empty it into a pan and grind up another 100 gallons of juice. And we had that second grinding going. I'd go down and start the furnace up, and I'd go to cooking, and her and the kids would keep grinding, you know, to keep the barrel filled up until we run out of cane. And the old smoke rolling up out of that furnace, the old black, looked like a locomotive coming down a track. It wouldn't be long, here comes somebody driving down my driveway, and they'd pull in and say, "We saw the smoke, man. From way on the ridge over yonder, another community way over yonder, I've seen that black smoke." I said, "I know what that is." And it wouldn't be long, there'd be another carload of people pulling up and another truckload of people. Some people might even be bringing some cane with them and say, "Look, while you're cooking, can I get you to grind my cane right quick, and you can keep some of the syrup, but I'd like to get a couple of gallons out of it if I could, and I'd tell them, say, look, you just get up there with the meal and y'all just keep grinding and putting it in the barrel, and we'll just share it all when we get to the end, you know. And those are things that we don't do anymore, and I miss those days. I really do. People back then, when they saw that old black smoke rolling from them old lighter knots that was thrown up under that furnace in there and that evaporator pan, they knew what that was. Them old people, some of them would show up with gallon jugs and say, Mr. King, I assume I seen the name on the mailbox. Is this Mr. King? I said, yes, sir, I'm Mr. King. He said, do you mind if we take one of our old gallon milk jugs and the cane juice is pouring out of that milk, can we get a gallon of it? And I'd tell them, go right ahead, just get you a gallon up while they're squeezing it, just run it out in it. And they'd say, man, we really appreciate that. It's been 20 or 30 years since we had fresh cane juice squeezed out. Said, man, it'll clean you out. It'll give you a good cleaning. And I told them, I said, yeah, you drink too much of it, it will, you know. It'll sure be like a natural laxative there for you if you just drink too much of it. But people today would look at it and go, oh my gosh, that looks like dirty dishwater. And it does. But guys, let me tell you, it's some of the most nutrient-dense stuff that you can put in your body. And it will give you a cleaning, believe me. But those things are just gone away now. Those old ways, they just about don't exist anymore. I cook syrup now on a regular basis every year. My big evaporator pan, I haven't had time to actually build a furnace. I mean, it's on the agenda to do. We got to put a building up. We got to build a furnace. And hopefully, before I pass away from this old world, I'll be able to cook sugar cane like I used to, and be able to. I cooked up to 100 gallons a day sometimes, and I sure would like to get back to that, and to be able to have people around, and to just be able to fellowship. You know, we'd throw some old sweet potatoes up on top of that furnace there on the hot part of it while we was cooking that morning. By dinner time, them old sweet potatoes would be just sap would be just boiling out of them there on top of it. Man, them things would be just, I'm talking about, old hulls would be dried up on them. The old potato on the inside would be just as moist and hot. And when you cooking syrup, you can't stop. It's an all-day thing till you finish. You know, you ain't no walking away from it. That syrup steady pouring out of the pan. You got to be working it, you know. Somebody's got to be steady feeding it. And you just break one of them old sweet potatoes open there. You know, you keep your pot of coffee sitting there or something, or hot chocolate, or whatever it is you like, cider or whatever. And you use the drinking and use the eating while you use the making that syrup. And I'm going to tell you what, there wasn't nothing no better. Nothing no better than living them days. Occasionally, if mama or somebody showed up, happened to bring an old pan of biscuits with them, because they seen the smoke and knew what it was, they'd offer you a biscuit, and that old syrup that was pouring out, you just stick your little pan up under it there. A lot of times we kept some little pie plates out there. You'd stick it up under and catch your little syrup in that pie plate, and while you was cooking, you was dragging that biscuit through it, you know, and you knew the syrup was good when you pulled the biscuit through it, and part of the biscuit stayed in the syrup. You know, I mean, that's what's called sopping. That was what was good, when you sopping syrup with a biscuit, you know. And people today don't even have a clue. They don't even know what that is, you know. They don't even know what the good times actually was. It's been so cold on me many times cooking syrup that the steam coming off that evaporator coming up over my face, and just look, this smoke hanging on the hills and the steam rolling out by that afternoon, my entire beard and my mustache would have sugar crystals all in it. I'd look like my whole beard, my mustache was pure sugar, just from the evaporation off of that syrup pan, that juice getting all over me. And I could just run my tongue out the corner of my mouth, and all you taste is just sweet. You know, I mean, it just, people just don't know. You know, they just don't know what it's like to live the old ways. A lot of them were just, you know, people going like, well, I don't know if I'd want to ever come to a hog killing. You know, it used to just be a family thing or a community thing. People got together. They all did it, and everybody helped everybody. When you fired them old bathtubs up, or 55-gallon drums, or whatever you was scalding that hog in, when you got one scalded and got him hung up, and you started desecrating him, somebody had another one going in. You know, and everybody had a job. Everybody knew what to do. Everybody was a scraping and a cleaning and a dousing some hot water on, getting rid of the other hairs. I mean, and The one who actually knew how to cut them up was off to the side over there. He was cutting them up and trimming off all the unwanted pieces, throwing them over into a pile. And some of the lady folks, or maybe some of the men folks that couldn't get out and help, maybe was too elderly, they were putting it in a grinder, hand grinding. They were grinding up some sausage there. They were mixing the fat in with it, and they were seasoning it and making up sausage. And a couple of them are cooking up a few patties for everybody around, just so everybody, you know, you can smell the sausage cooking and just kind of like edged you on. You know, you was like, man, I can just give you the urge to go, and because you could smell that sausage you're cooking. And they were cutting off them slabs of bacon, throwing them over there, rolling them over in that salt, and you know, getting them out there, getting them to the smokehouse, and getting everything going that afternoon. You could smell the bacon and smoking out there in the smokehouse, and they were putting sausage in casings and hanging it out there, and it was all getting ready to be smoked. And that smoke rolling and billowing out of the smokehouse for 2 or 3 days there, you know, because sometimes it lasted for days doing this process. The whole community could just smell the smoke of bacon and sausage and all this stuff. And at the end of it, everybody came together. Everybody got their meat that they wanted, their hams. They were all salted down, packed around the bones, and hung in the smokehouse there for sometimes up to 6 months to cure. And I'm going to tell you what, if you ain't ever had any what's called country ham. Now, not ham like you buying in a store. I'm talking about a country ham. What's called country ham. It's a lot stronger than what you get in the store. And I'm going to tell you, I come through Virginia one time, coming back from New York where I was working at, and I stopped at the little place there, and I told them, I said, ma'am, I sure hope y'all got some country ham. And she said, honey, Lord, where have you been, sweetheart? And I told her, I said, I just come from New York City. And she said, New York City, good Lord, we need to get you something to eat, sweetheart. And she says, we're going to bring you a big old plate of biscuits in here with some good old molasses and sorghum syrup, and we're going to bring you some country ham. We're going to have some grits and eggs. She said, how about that? How about I fix you just a good old meal? And I said, ma'am, that sounds like the best. That sounds like music to my ears. I said, good old down-home cooking, you know. And guys, I'll tell you what, I gorged on that food there, and I left that woman a really good tip. I told her, I said, ma'am, you don't know how long it's been, me being up here in this city working. You just don't know how long it's been since I've had this kind of food, you know. And guys, a lot of the old ways have just been lost. And unless you've lived them, you just really don't know what it is. And the generation that's about to die off in the next few years was the generation that actually lived all of this and had the knowledge. And a few of them passed it on to a few people like me and a few others. And guys, it's up to people like me and a few others out there to keep this going, because I'm not a big country fan, you know, country music fan. I do listen to some country music occasionally, but I think it was George Jones that sang "Who's Gonna Fill Their Shoes When They're Gone." You know, I kind of think about that a lot of times. When all these old patriarchs are gone, especially people like me, when we die off, who's going to fill our shoes? I do my best to put this stuff up on YouTube so people can learn and try to show them what it's like to make sausage and to do cane syrup and to squeeze sugar cane and to cook it and to do all these old-fashioned ways of everything. I do my best to try to teach people all I can, because somebody's got to fill our shoes when we're gone. So guys, think about that. Who's going to fill their shoes? Thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.